Kajay Maratashif, ta punches who Quinn, the Sanamdum, Tame Alan Sasta, a Vahisho and you, a country Philiot, August and Shop and you, a Gospel in Foyle Street in Derry. So, Gormy, I got to Jenny for inviting me here. My name is Frankie Quinn. I want to start off with reading some poetry from my book, just published by Hive Studio Books in Derry. And the book is called Open Gates. The book comes in 3 sections. I'll read some from each section and then possibly read some of my newer stuff on the computer. So part 1 is called Boyhood's Fire, and we'll read a few from it. Woods, in the lull hangs a breeze, rhythmic sound of footballer bees, resting on trembling leaves under perennial trees. Hazily moving in humid shade, gentle lovers entwined persuade each other's passions within a glade, open-mouthed reservations fade. Some of this section is a lot to do with nature and the sea. So, ocean. Waves brush the ocean's face, gently kissing away each spray, cast over sand dunes where each grain waits its turn to fall closer to water's edge. Oceans rise up, sing in booming voice, to infant waves maturing, to swishing plumps of sea, lulling in the sand's embrace, swallowed without a trace. And this is one, it's from an old mythical story in Ireland about the children of Ler. Ler it's called. Beauty begrudged by stepmother, Aoife, cursed innocence from loch shore to open sea, 300 times across heathered land. King called out in hope, no answer came from baying stag, nor golden eagle's screech. Wild swans stood transfixed. Infant spirits haunt the strat of Moyle. Roaming father searched enemy eyes for glimmer of guilt. Years waxed his smooth with age, while beside him hovered a treacherous love. Selfish deeds brought destruction to gentle king. Baptism was death for the newborn cygnet's human form. And the next one is called Disorderly Eating. Disorderly she eats. An uncomfortable poem about people with problems with eating disorders. Content with emptiness, longing for you beside me, alone, with food in each hand, carried from within, you touched my emotions, felt the sharp edge of acceptance I can. Will drawing curtains reveal shallow feelings? We eat together, watching mirrored eyes stream in frigid appetite. Security becomes you without fear. And this one is called Tree. Hard thuds chop through me with the heavy sound that blunts my sense, knocking out inhabitants who flutter away, stunned by unfamiliar daylight hours. Like an unskinned drum, the last beat runs with sap along my trunk to the stretched out bases beneath the gripping soil. Here I've stood for a century. Each deep, hollow slouth brings me closer to flame of metamorphosis into your grandfather clock. Leave my archeries in the earth's womb, hidden from Axeman strokes of insanity. And this one is called Look Before You Speak. He took her to the top of a mountain. He showed her the beauty beneath her and said, I love you. She surveyed her position, then laughed in his face. He jumped off the edge and crushed his skull on the rocks below. She cried aloud, her tears fell like uncut diamonds and splashed in his blood. She stretched out her arms, fell forward and crushed her skull on the rocks below. Their mother mixed and ran with the fresh water stream into the valley where the lake rested. A salmon drank their fluid and arose out of the water, 2 white swans. The cob swan looked at the hen swan and said, "This is a beautiful valley, and I..." She stopped him, wrapped her neck around his and said, "Yes, this is a beautiful valley." So be careful who you say, "I love you" to. And this is one it's called Maiden. She emerged from the woods to where he lay, prostrate, blood streaming from his chest. She knelt beside him, kissed his parched lips, their faces and bodies pressed into one, and a powerful hawk thrust forth from the thickets to the sky and hovered over the trees. It wheeled and soared towards the mountains, and a feather fell from its breast. They watched as it floated from the silent sky. She put out both her hands and caught it, placing it on his torn body. It knitted his lesion like a spider's web, and they grew together, becoming a bush of wild pink roses on the forest's edge. And this is one called Yes, Sir. On others' wounds they thrive, licking exposed parts with flaming tongue. Condemn those who dare to ask why. You must not question. They alone have the right to pass judgment on any who fail to conform. But they believe in what they do. One Austrian-born aspiring despot believed the same. Kiss 3 times those who cast the first stone. Glass houses shatter when truths are thrown. Inside this world where loyalty is rewarded, men become sycophantic saps, marching into the promised land where uniformity resigns supreme. But change is brought by those who stand alone, who claim the right to be themselves, who claim the right to dream. And this one is called Drink. Whiskey stole the child. We watched the demolition of security. We learned that vodka tears don't smell. They smart on welts like salt and burn deceiving eyes. Enchanting self-esteem to shipwreck on the rocks that swirl inside a black Russian's drowning innocence. Adults now, we struggle out of an empty bottle, exhausted, trying to find a hearth to rest at. And this one is anonymous. I walked along the street naked. I stopped a woman and asked her where I was going. She pointed to the sea and said, "In there, I expect." I walked on. Then I stopped a man and asked him where I was going. He pointed to the mountains and said, "Up there, I expect." I stood in the middle of the street and screamed, "Where are my fucking clothes?" All the people stopped and glared at me and shouted, "We haven't given you any yet." And this is one called Voice. He had a voice once. He could shout, and he asked why. But they couldn't answer his questions. So they came and took his voice away. They locked it in a poor tomb called H. But a lark carried his voice out over the high walls, and he became an MP. Now he has a voice, is as loud as 1,000,000 voices, and he died to free. And it's just a short one called Flags. Flapping flags forget nothing, like those who get lost in wrangling to perceive an identity that becomes strangling. Question mark. This one is called Easter. From 6 foot deep came tall soldiers under a shadow of marble. Long bodies cast their feet in line forward into light where moon illuminates scars on shoulders like bold welts on fossils of stone. Soul of the revolution below ground has become a new ray for freedom. Reach deep into the earth, give a hand to those who can't dare rise it for their own country's right to be the living reflection of those who died unfree. Pull them from shallow resting place, lift their heads, point them towards the sun. Expose the misty, unforgiving freaks who hide behind various crosses, spuriously mocking those who don't choose the last kiss. And this is one called Sandymount, which is based on something that happened years ago. There was a photograph of a homeless man who had travelled from England, one of the lost Irish in England, and they published his photograph on the slab in the morgue in Dublin because nobody could find his identity. And I wrote a poem. It was a shock, and I don't think they ever found out who he was. Still red water holds death cold, free now from environing tightness, yearning for. Please don't enter while he sleeps with open wrists, flowing warm relief in strange homely cast iron bath. No help needed, Samaritans answer no calls from here. Even now, no one recognises what draws sharpness along blue veins. Identity unknown, life unwanted, funeral paid in full by himself. The lost soldier of society, whose growing legacy is Van Gogh's iris. And as you can see, he then killed himself in a bath and a bed and breakfast and booked his own funeral. So this one's called Blackbird. A blackbird sings outside my cage. Yellow bill, small black eyes stare at me with searching gaze. Turning head from side to side, watching me within a maze. He puffs his chest and plays a tune for praise. Flaps black wings and flies free. I thought for a moment he laughed at me. A chuckle rose inside my breast. It usually is the other way. It's man who laughs and walks away. But not today. Not today. A prisoner, me, in a man-made cage. I now understand a caged bird's rage. Why won't he sing, people ask. Maybe it's because of the wire mask. Each time he blows his magical song, I close my eyes and drift along to times and places where I used to be. Was it this blackbird who sang to me? As I watched trout jump in diamonded stream, dancing, tumbling in one sunbeam. Clatter of keys in a cold steel door, it rids me of softness, I can dream no more. The jailer enters my private place. What's that smile on your face? He spits aloud. I don steel mask and stand up straight and proud. On razor-wired blackbirds will stir as I carry out my body there. Then they will know who has won the fight. As with Bobby's lark, we turn a wing to freedom's flight. This is one called On a Cliff's Edge. It's dealing with mental health issues, and particularly among young men, I think, who find it difficult to express themselves, find themselves in this position sometimes. If he were to stumble and fall, will the light catch his breath? Will the wind toss his hair from side to side or blow it straight in his face, so tears become ice, frozen pearls on his face? On a cliff's edge, sharp stone pillars point towards wild dreams. Coloured by hard rain on cut cheeks, outstretched arms of bewildered boy, he rests his head on the breeze. Watch steals him away to the warmth. Don't look up, no one there to call out stop, or touch the patched out eyes inflamed with pain. Black out the blue below each wrist. Emptiness befriends him on a beach in winter. No coloured towels or squeaky rubber toys. Mothers push into bags full of love for boys. When you are bad, you are bad. You are not allowed to be sad. He stepped out, walked with the clouds. No permission to scream. Shut your mouth. Don't blame us. You told us you were fine. This is an ongoing problem that we face. I do some work with it myself, and community work that I do is the drug issue. It's called heroin. Ghosts tiptoe through fields of upturned needles. Avoid wounds, injected, nagging emptiness. Fettered sockets pierced blindness around reddened sores. Vampires entice entry to where pain dissolves on a teaspoon. It spits lightning boiling through veins of reddened skull torture to uncharted sterile place. Excited, money sweats on trembling palms. Given by goo-gooders on an altar. Growls mumble through pitiless dealer. With speed of a hand magic happens. Tourniquet arrests blood on an endless carnival of pain. Drops escape to hidden feet left unwrapped and vile. That last sleep thumps at laden lids. Numbness holds her crushed. Her longing, unrelenting terror. What soul should induce this childish cry while condemned mother allows headlights to consume her? This is one called Bullet. It was Wilfred Owen or Seaford Sassoon, I'm not sure which poet, wrote about a bullet in a similar vein, really, dealing with her own recent past, I suppose. Slick, slice, slick, shape, cut deep, airburst, spiral, twisted point to pain, copper flak jacket deep in shattered bone, mouth let smoke assist to open wound, with hopeless vision of soft, hollowed stir, halted gasp, flashed bright in darkness, snarled whistle clashed with sound, convulsed shape splashed on red washed ground, blood streaks none in line, ending time. And this is one called Hunger. It basically deals historically with the hunger strike in 1981 and the H blocks of Long Cash. It also deals with the hunger strike and the Palestinian prisoners constantly have to endure for human rights in Zionist tombs in Palestine. It's based really on the hidden oyster, the pearl that's inside an oyster shell. The sands is that creates the oyster, the thirst, and the young boys that were killed on the beaches of Gaza. Small, precious gift beneath rubble's volume, hidden within crusty darkness, longing for light. It grows with intense, penetrating pureness. Curled, protected small foot, dissolved with security of solid foundation, anchored forever, wanting home. Hunger burned within sand's crystallized fusion, creates wondrous stone viewed by none who dare open wounds entwined in the belly of an ocean of pain. Swallowed salt water lives fall on a May day, hovering above still Gaza, living Gaza Strip. Ever so patiently open to reveal precious poet who died to free the immortal soul sought after by all who proclaim righteousness. Inside a Zionist tomb, where sleep becomes an oyster catcher's nightmare, locked in a H-block hell. And this is the third part of the book. It's called Another Day. A small one called Flowers. With a friend of mine from Derry, he loved this poem. He just died last year, Maurice Healy. Would have been a close friend of mine and one of the main people who pushed for the publishing of this book. Recognised the work. Flowers. Some men never think. You did. You came to me and said, I nearly bought you flowers. But something happened and you never bought them. This made me smile. Then I hugged you. You smiled. I'm still smiling. The flowers you nearly bought have lasted all this while, because you nearly bought them. When I see you, I warm, two empty hands, one as long as the other, held outwards. These are my flowers for you. And this is one just fits in with today, funny enough. It's called Peace, and it would have been written around the time Clinton would have came over to Ireland with John Hume, who died yesterday, just from this city here. Peace inside a biscuit tin. Round and round the treadmill, rusty edges point upwards. Orange lights glare monster-like at isolation. We, hamsters, keep the wheel turning, desperately trying to succeed in the impossible task, to clamber out of incarceration. The faster we race, the greater the futility. All with the same aimless end, to survive in the tin box where zombies sneer at our progress. Another deep one is called Depth. When a man asked him, "Why are your eyes so sad?" he looked at him and replied, "I don't know, why are yours so happy? I'm happy because I'm alive. And what's so fucking good about being alive?" The man walked away bewildered. A woman asked him, "Why are your eyes so sad?" He looked at her and replied, "I don't know, but why are you so happy?" "I'm happy because I see a depth in you." "It's fucking great to be alive," he replied. And this is one called Trout, as in the fish. Dancing flies bounce on mirrored face. Dappling circles loop to vibrate. Copycat rings follow each perfect space. Round as drops from skimmed slate. Tiptoeing on spindle with pixie's grace. Walking on water is a dangerous task. Below speckled watcher follows her twirls. Spinning delicate wings flutter and clasp. Humid quiver wobbles the wave as she pirouettes and jumps on her polished grave. He launches with force from the depths so calm, focused on shadows, pixeled and glazed, timing the jump to open-mouthed slam. Torpedo-like flash turn with a flick of a tail. Up out of the stainless emerges a colourful pail. Another one about the swan. And they say before the swan dies it sings. Across stillness the calm rustle echoes, her singing to the mountains flowing side. Reverberating dulcet lilt, surrounded in secrets. Her bended neck caresses his as they lock in tide. Her head drops, disrupting clear water. He gently bends below to hold her aloft. Haunted, singing wafts with burning light that shines on the whiteness entwined, sinking softly. His outstretched wings shade her body as they drift to the bottom of a shimmering bed. He gasps last life. Together they sing the song of a dying swan, forever in the winds as they sing below. and this one is called Wine. Those who struggle from hard roots beneath solid ground are the cornerstones in the house where courage lives. Like grapes they grow, ripe and ready for tramping, by feet pad with blood-soaked sheets of silk. They taste dirt in red and white with sour blue on the lips of bodies strewn across roads before them. In raped countries, invaders steal the native tongue, replacing richness of culture with bastardized drone. Indigenous endure years of oppressive, high-browed murderers who drink wine and sleep through the upheaval carried out in the name of the crown. Its spikes now inserted in our heads like a cork screwed to the limits, caged in an overflowing rack. And the short one called Grief. Grief, it hangs on, come autumn bits fall. When the winds shake old branches, they release gliding copper flakes. They float down obliquely, brush lost memories, forgotten images mirrored forever on glazed eyes. Where tears have fallen, watering acorns, green oaks push through softness with silent stealth. This one's called River. A nature poem, really. If you listen to the whispering bogs, you'll hear the story of talking frogs. They survey from moss-covered logs while water rises within the fog. From here they see the kingfisher strike its rocket shape with piercing spike. The stunned fish's wriggling plight, food for the open-mouthed young delight. While breasted dipper, amusing to some, searches riverbed with loaded tongue. The scurrying vole plops into fast run, while otters bask in the fresh morning sun. A mink on the hunt, the blackbird's danger call, triumph of creatures protecting the small. Timing is out for the rat standing tall, she gobbles her up by the fast waterfall. Calm returns when the black-coated moves on, the water reveals speckled brown trout, long-necked stork, still as a stone, reeds bend in the breeze. This one here would possibly deal with some hidden dangers that people find difficult possibly to deal with. Writing allows some people to deal with these issues, I think, different times. Door jammed, stroked hair, awakened voices, patched quilt pulled tightly, protection from sweaty hands on cold door handles, pushed down, trembling, a child alone on tiled floor. Breath creeps through as draught sneakingly enticed drunken smiles, patriotic songs drifting along the hall, echoing off walls, studded with secrets. She craves reassuring hugs that banish doubt. Stoic terror dreams of emptiness escape in the dark. She bottles her helplessness, puts it up high on a shelf beyond reach. Pain pulls tears from a child's night fear. A woman now, she holds her knees tightly pressed, curled in a bed, still struggling to close the door. The voices burst through her open sores, calling her back to the pit of her stomach, churning with sickness. Holding her arms wide for approval from those accusing eyes. You're dreaming. Her story has no happy ending. Caressed harshness, pressed lines appear where memories condemn forgiveness. And this is one by Charlie Donnelly. Charlie Donnelly, he was killed in the Spanish Civil War, was a poet from Tyrone. It's called Charlie Donnelly's Slan. Feel the olives sour and hard on the ground, where freedom wept beneath the feet of Irish rebels, betrayed by homegrown suits, with buttons stamped by the crown. Two heads, one looking forward, the other back, for people who stood for liberation, shielded by stone ditches on every other side a gun. Crack! He falls, a muttering slan a cara between comrades of another tongue. Cradle a rebel who fled from counter-invasion, to fall beneath the orchards of sun-baked land where dryness insults his throat. He fades away into the evening with eternal nightlark's song. Through the exploding clatter of stripping bark scorched by heat and hate, carry back the bodies of fallen soldiers who stood shoulder to shoulder. With international consciousness, they brought together those prepared to free nations oppressed by all the isms of conservative thought. Plant them beside the oak and drench them with water to grow saplings for future generations who will forever bring them to remember us. Another sad one, very sombre book this, I'm afraid. Tears. When she cried, her tears fell in his eyes, filled them and returned his reflection to her mind, where softness joined both, becoming one drop together on water. She held the moisture in her hands, kissed, life came running down her face with marked, colourful streams, staggering to trembling lips. She licked salty pearls and passed them to him. He absorbed them, became her shimmering light in the same brightness created by dreams. Quivering inside her head were lonely memories of a lover long gone. He forever marked her soul. She drank the shine from his clearness, then filled his heart brimming with kindness and love. He tried to accept, but the waves would not allow him. He turned beneath them and died with no sign of her.